So, for that type of person, the power of language, the problem, the dilemma is a lack of recognition of mental injury and the difference between talking about a mental illness and a mental injury. And that is the gap that trauma informed care is currently trying to fill. And so, in closing, there's a lot more that I could say on that point. Um, it may sound like I am leveling blame, but I'm not, because I know that in a certain sense there was a lack of technology available to actually pinpoint the effects of trauma and abuse on the brain. But in that lack of technology, an incredible number of people became guinea pigs for the pharmaceutical industry. And after it happened to me, it seemed that they were expanding their reach by targeting younger and younger people. So I had a psychiatrist tell me once that there was an epidemic of young women diagnosed with bipolar disorder in the late 90s. The subsequent epidemic was teenage boys being diagnosed with ADHD. So, in the impetus to capture ever expanding markets of patients, the sprawl, the reach, they weren't limiting themselves through sexism, okay? They became equal opportunity. And I have a lot to say about my opinion about ADHD and the medications prescribed for that, because stimulant use was a huge part of my childhood. So I won't get into that now. But out of this lack of technology, they know now that the brain scans of people with post traumatic stress disorder from childhood trauma and abuse are identical to those of people with post traumatic stress disorder who experience combat. And that was a great breakthrough, I feel. That was very validating, very confirming. It is unfortunate that I am of an age where that was not part of my diagnosis. That was not part of the process. My brain was never scanned, and I was diagnosed according to whatever I responded to in terms of medications. So, at the heart of it, there are ethical issues, there are a lot of moral values that go into the creation of medical language around mental illness. And we are only now coming to recognize mental injury. I want to close by saying that it's very important for survivors to construct their own language of survival and to tell their own stories and to recognize their own experience in words. That is a very empowering thing when you're able to tell your story in terms of it being a unique to you phenomenon, not in terms of labels, not in terms of diagnoses. I highly recommend that you look into the work of Lucy Johnstone. She's a British woman who has created something called the Power, Threat, and Meaning Framework. The purpose of this was to give social workers and therapists and doctors a way of addressing psychic pain that didn't involve diagnoses, because in her opinion, diagnoses are limiting, reductive narrative categories that don't actually help in the treating of people with mental distress. So I will close with that. And I will say that if you are watching this video, I hope you are well. My name is Amanda, and I am an aspiring health coach living in the United States.